You see, the biggest mistake most men make is chasing harder when a woman shows no interest. They text more, call more, beg for attention, hoping that persistence will change her mind. But let me tell you something. Desperation never attracts. Respect does. Confidence does. Self-worth does. If a woman isn't interested in you, it doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means you've been approaching the situation the wrong way. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to attract a woman who isn't interested, without losing your dignity, without games, and without pretending to be someone you're not. When a woman shows no interest, the natural impulse for many men is to close the gap immediately. They want to prove themselves, to push harder, to keep showing up until she finally sees their worth. They think if they call more, text more, buy gifts, or constantly remind her of their presence, she'll eventually change her mind. But in reality, the opposite happens. The more you chase, the more she pulls away. The more you insist, the more she resists. Because attraction is not something you can force. It is not something you can earn by begging for attention. Attraction is a fire, and just like any fire, the more you smother it, the faster it dies. The most powerful thing you can do when she isn't interested is to stop chasing and create distance. I know that sounds counterintuitive. I know it feels uncomfortable, but distance is not about playing games. It is about regaining your self-respect. It is about shifting the focus away from her and back onto yourself. Because here is the truth. The man who cannot step back, the man who cannot survive her silence, the man who cannot walk away loses all of his power. He gives her complete control over his emotions. And when that happens, attraction becomes impossible. But the man who steps back sends a very different message, with O. But saying the truth about attraction, single word, he communicates strength. He communicates independence. He communicates, I am not desperate for your attention. I have my own life, my own goals, and my own value. If you don't see it, that's your choice. But I will not spend my energy begging for your approval. That quiet confidence, that ability to create space, changes the entire dynamic. Suddenly, she feels the absence of your energy. She begins to wonder why you're not chasing. She notices what life feels like when you're not constantly available. That is, when curiosity begins to grow. You see, attraction is built in contrast. She cannot miss you if you never leave. She cannot feel your value if you're always on standby. When you create distance, you give her room to feel the weight of your presence by experiencing your absence. And that is powerful. Think about it. The most valuable things in life are not the ones constantly within reach. They are the ones we must earn, the ones we must notice, the ones that stand firm, whether we acknowledge them or not. A man who respects himself, enough to stop chasing, becomes exactly that. He becomes rare. He becomes valuable. He becomes unforgettable. So stop over-explaining. Stop proving. Stop running after someone who has already made it clear she isn't interested. Instead, take a step back and let your silence speak louder than your words. Put that energy into yourself. Redirect it into your growth, your passions, your goals. Because the moment you stop making her the center of your life, something incredible happens. You start becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to chase. You start becoming the man who attracts naturally because he lives from a place of self-worth. Distance is not rejection. Distance is protection. It protects your dignity, your peace, and your power. And when you master it, you stop being just another man chasing her attention. You become the man she eventually notices. Confidence is not something you try to fake for a few moments when she is around. It is not about puffing out your chest, talking louder, or pretending you don't care. Real confidence is built, not performed. And the reason so many men struggle to attract a woman who isn't interested is because she can sense that the confidence they project isn't grounded in truth. Women are intuitive. They can feel insecurity before a man even says a word. They can say hesitation in the way he carries himself, hear doubt in the way he speaks, and recognize fear in the way he reacts. That's why the real solution isn't about convincing her to see your worth. It's about building a version of yourself that knows his worth so deeply that her opinion no longer defines you. Think about this carefully. Confidence comes from growth. Every time you show up for yourself, you deposit a little more belief into your own character. When you commit to exercising, why chasing never works. Not just sculpting your body, you're proving that you have discipline, that you can follow through, that you have self-control. When you dedicate yourself to learning a skill, whether it's a new language, a career advancement, or even a creative pursuit, you're building proof in your mind that you are capable of evolving. When you step outside of your comfort zone, you're demonstrating to yourself that fear doesn't control you, and that accumulation of small victories creates something that no one can take away. Inner certainty. This certainty is what women are drawn to, not the loud performance of confidence, but the quiet presence of it. A man who knows himself doesn't need to announce it. He doesn't need to prove it. It is visible in the way he stands, the way he listens, the way he makes decisions. That is why a woman who initially wasn't interested can suddenly feel a shift when she sees that growth, because confidence is magnetic. It draws people in without force. But here's the key. You cannot build this for her. If your entire reason for self-improvement is to win her attention, you will fail, because at some point the energy of neediness will creep back in, and she will feel it. You must build confidence for yourself, not for anyone else. When you do it for you, it becomes real. It becomes authentic, and that authenticity is what makes it unshockable. Imagine for a moment that she still doesn't become interested, even after you've grown, even after you've transformed. Does that mean the effort was wasted? Absolutely not, because confidence that comes from self-growth will open doors far beyond her. It will elevate your career, your friendships, your relationships, and your entire life. It will change how the world perceives you, and more importantly, how you perceive yourself. And when you stand in that kind of strength, rejection loses its sting. One woman's lack of interest no longer has the power to break you, because your value is not tied to her validation. So if you want to attract a woman who isn't interested, stop obsessing over her reaction and start obsessing over your own growth. Building self-respect first. Yourself into a man who doesn't need to chase, because his very presence is enough. Build the kind of confidence that doesn't scream for attention, but quietly commands it. When you do that, whether she changes her mind or not, you win, because you become the man who doesn't beg to be chosen. You become the man who chooses himself first. Neediness is the silent killer of attraction. It doesn't always show up in obvious ways like begging or pleading. Sometimes it's subtle, but just as damaging. It shows up when you're glued to your phone waiting for her reply, when your mood rises and falls based on her attention, when you constantly wonder what she's thinking or why she hasn't noticed you. That energy is heavy. It tells her that you've handed over your sense of worth and control of your emotions to her. And no woman wants to carry that responsibility. Attraction doesn't grow in neediness. It grows in strength, in stability, and in emotional control. The man who masters his emotions becomes untouchable. He doesn't panic when she pulls back. He doesn't collapse when she ignores him. He doesn't get angry when she doesn't give him the attention he expected. Instead, he stays calm. He stays grounded. He understands that her behavior does not define his value. And that calmness is powerful. Because when a woman sees a man who cannot be shaken by her indifference, she realizes he is different from the rest. He's not desperate. He's not clingy. He's not waiting for her approval to feel strong. He is strong on his own. Think about the difference between two men. one constantly texts, wonders why she hasn't answered, rewrites messages 3 times, checks his phone every 5 minutes. He is trapped in a cycle of insecurity. The other man notices she hasn't replied, shrugs it off, and goes back to focusing on his work, his training, his passions. He respects her silence, but he also respects himself. Which man do you think she will eventually feel drawn toward? It's not even a question. The calm, steady presence will always be more attractive than the anxious, desperate energy. Emotional control also means knowing how to respond to rejection without falling apart. Every man will face rejection at some point. But rejection is not a reflection of your lack of value. It is simply a sign that the connection wasn't right. When you can face rejection, power of silence, and distance without anger, without bitterness, and without losing your composure, you prove your strength. And that resilience is what makes you stand out. A man who can be turned down yet remain composed is a man who shows he cannot be broken by circumstances. This is why mastering emotional control is so important. It allows you to lead yourself. It allows you to remain centered when things don't go your way. And women are naturally drawn to men who lead, not men who crumble. Emotional stability tells her that you won't become dependent on her for happiness. It tells her that you can stand strong, even when life throws challenges your way. That assurance is magnetic. So stop allowing your emotions to be dictated by her attention. Stop giving away your power every time she doesn't respond the way you hoped. Start building the ability to stay calm, patient, and focused on yourself no matter what she does. Because the moment you free yourself from neediness, you instantly separate yourself from the crowd of men who suffocate women with insecurity. You step into the role of the man who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't crumble. He attracts by the strength of his presence alone. And once you reach that point, you'll never worry about whether she's interested or not, because your worth won't be measured by her reaction, but by the strength of the man you've become. Attraction isn't built only on charm, looks, or smooth words. Those things can catch attention for a short while, but they cannot hold it. What truly makes a man irresistible is when he lives with purpose. A man with direction, with a mission bigger than himself, radiates a kind of energy that no amount of chasing or convincing can replace. Purpose gives you a presence that people feel without you saying a word. When a woman looks at you and sees that your life is moving forward with clarity and drive, she begins to feel that you are a man worth paying attention to. The mistake many men make is centering their whole identity around winning a woman's interest. They wake up thinking about her. They structure their days, hoping for her attention, and they shape their actions based on what they think will impress her. But the truth is, nothing repels a woman more than realizing that a man's entire sense of value depends on her approval. On the other hand, when she sees that you are dedicated to your vision, to your goals, and to your growth, she can't help but admire you. It doesn't mean she'll instantly fall in love, but it means she'll begin to see you differently. Purpose is powerful because it shows leadership, and leadership is one of the deepest sources of attraction. A man who wakes up with something to fight for, something to build, something to achieve, doesn't have time to obsess over whether someone is interested in him. He doesn't crumble when ignored because his fulfillment doesn't come from attention. It comes from his mission. That independence, that fire makes her realize she's dealing with a man who doesn't need her to survive. He chooses who to let into his life. And how women test men, that choice is what makes him desirable. Think of it like this. When you see someone who is completely devoted to their craft, an artist painting, an athlete training, an entrepreneur builder in, there's something magnetic about it. You can't help but be drawn to their intensity, their passion, their focus. That's because human beings are naturally attracted to passion. When a man has purpose, his passion becomes visible in everything he does. His conversations have depth. His decisions have weight. His presence has strength. That is what separates him from the crowd. Living with purpose doesn't mean you need to have the whole world figured out. It doesn't mean you need to bearish, famous, or at the top of your field. It simply means you know where you're going and you're committed to walking that path every day. It could be your career, your business, your health, or even a personal mission to grow into the best version of yourself. Their details don't matter as much as the discipline and consistency you show. Because when a woman looks at you and sees that drive, she knows you're a man who cannot be swayed by boredom, rejection, or distraction. When you live with purpose, you don't chase women. You attract them naturally. They see you as a man who is going somewhere, and instinctively, they want to be part of that journey. Even if she wasn't interested before, your energy will feel different. You won't be the man begging for her attention. You'll be the man she starts to notice without you, even trying. That's the power of purpose. It transforms you from someone seeking validation into someone who already holds value. And once you reach that place, you'll realize that her interest isn't the prize at all. The real prize is the life you build and the man you become while chasing your mission. Once you've stepped back, built your confidence, mastered your emotions, and committed yourself to a purposeful life, the way you approach her again must be completely different from before. You cannot re-engage with the same energy that once pushed her away. If you do, nothing will change. This time, it has to come from a place of respect, not pressure. That means you don't return to her expecting that she owes you anything. You don't demand her attention, and you don't approach with frustration about why she didn't see, shifting focus back to yourself, your value earlier. Instead, you show her through your calm, grounded presence that you are a man who knows his worth and respects her freedom to choose. Re-engaging with respect means your conversations aren't about convincing her. They're not about persuading or trying to outtalk her doubts. They're about connection, not conquest. You're not there to force her into liking you because you finally understand that attraction cannot be forced. It has to be felt. And when you show up as someone who doesn't push, doesn't demand, but simply stands strong in who he is, you create the right environment for attraction to grow naturally. Women notice the difference immediately. They feel safe around a man who doesn't pressure them because he's not looking for her to complete him. He's already whole. Respect also means honoring her pace, not rushing to get what you want. Many men make the mistake of trying to skip steps, hoping to jump straight into romance or commitment because they're afraid of losing the opportunity. But when you move from respect, you let things unfold at their natural speed. You let her see your growth. You let her experience the change in your energy. And you let her come closer when she feels ready. This patience is rare and it stands out. It makes her realize you're not the same man she once dismissed. You've evolved. When you re-engage with respect, you no longer carry the old energy of desperation. You don't flood her with messages. You don't demand explanations. You don't try to reopen every closed door. Instead, you approach her with lightness and confidence, knowing that whether she chooses to connect with you or not, you remain strong. This energy is what makes her feel curiosity again. She starts to ask herself why you're so different, why you're so calm, and why you seem completely content without her validation. That shift plants the seed of attraction where none existed before. And even if she never chooses to respond, even if she never opens that door, you win. Final lesson: the right way to approach her. Why? Because you're engaged with dignity. You proved to yourself that you could step forward without losing yourself. You showed that your self-worth doesn't rise or fall based on one woman's interest. That is real strength. That is what separates you from men who spend their lives begging, pleading, or forcing outcomes. At the end of the day, approaching her again is not about winning her back. It's about standing tall, no matter what happens. When you do it with respect, you leave the encounter with your pride intact, your growth visible, and your heart steady. That is the kind of man women remember. And even if she walks away, the right woman, the one who truly sees you, will recognize the power of your transformation. Because the truth is, re-engaging isn't about changing her mind. It's about showing the world and yourself that you are no longer the man who chases. You are the man who attracts. So remember this: stop chasing. Build yourself. Master your emotions. Live with purpose. Approach with respect. If she isn't interested today, that doesn't mean she never will be. But more importantly, it doesn't matter, because the moment you focus on becoming the strongest version of yourself, you'll realize the real prize isn't her attention. It's your transformation. And once you become that man, the right woman will notice.